right, we're live in 5, 4, 3. Hey, everybody, welcome here to today's Automotive Consumer Experience webcast. This is one of 6 different webcast programs that we conduct here on Auto Conversion under the Auto Retail Marketing Webcast Series program, which is held every Tuesday. Normally, today is at 2 o'clock, but after today, all sessions will be moved to 3 o'clock Central. So I'm Ryan Girardi. Today is Tuesday, May 26th. Thank you for joining us here. Whether you're watching the recording or on the live feed, I'll check the live feed in a few minutes. Today, we're going to be looking at cracking the code to unlock and unleash your dealership website traffic. That's the goal for today. I have Lori Foster on with us from Foster Strategies Group. She's representing InSearchX, which are the purveyors of the all-new continuous engagement marketing platform called Ask Auto. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So I'll have Lori up in just a few moments. We're going to be looking at continuous engagement marketing and converting website traffic into conversations. Let me do a quick orientation for those that are here on Zoom with us, as I call Backstage on Zoom. Thank you for being here. There's a Q&A function. You can submit questions passively without interrupting us at any time throughout our discussion today. You can also raise your hand and I can turn your audio on and you can ask questions. After Lori and I get through our discussion, what we'll do is we'll open up for official Q&A. Feel free to ask questions at any time, but we'll open up and we could even bring your audio on or your video on and participate in the Q&A. Now, if you're on the live stream and you want to get up here on the Zoom, there is a link to register to do so. It'll instantly create access for you to hop up here. And this is the page that you'll see. And you can just register and get your Zoom access. Now, this is recorded. Once the live stream ends, the link to the video becomes unlisted. So you need the link to view the recordings. And the best way to get that is by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Turn on the notifications and you'll be notified when we go live and you'll have a link to the recording. And this is also featured. We normally have featured these sessions on the AutoConverse podcast. But I have some new announcements. We are also going to be sharing some of this great information on the Dealer Talk podcast. So we're working on that as well. So make sure you subscribe to both AutoConverse and Auto Conversion. So what I'd like to do here is, Lori, you can go ahead and get yourself ready just to lay out the conversation today. How many conversations are you engaging in with your website each month, your dealership website? And this isn't a trick question because no matter the answer, you're likely engaging with upwards to 2% of your overall website traffic. And typically around 1% of that traffic turns into car sales. So what if you could increase that percentage by, say, 1 or 2 points? What if you could accelerate your conversion and engagement with website visitors? And how would this impact your bottom line? So there is the premise of our conversation. And without further ado, Lori Foster. Hello, Lori.
Hello, Ryan. Thanks so much for having me on today for this really great conversation.
Yes, looking forward to this. And Lori and I have been in constant communication over the past few weeks. You're doing I love the program that you're laying out to bring Ask Auto to the B2B side, to the B2B market. Let's do a couple of things. We're going to get into Ask Auto. We're going to get into unlocking and unleashing dealership website traffic. But one of the terms you use is continuous engagement marketing. Can you define that for us?
Oh, yeah. And it's one of my favorite things about InSearchX and Ask Auto is right now, so many dealers, the only connectivity they have to their customers are antiquated systems like email, or they lean on chat, or they think they're going to text or call, but they don't even have the right number. What this does, continuous engagement marketing, is an open communication channel that at any and all times, and I'm not just talking about 24 hours a day and annoying customers, but anytime at all that you have something to share with them, you're instantly on with them because we know that the information is correct. You don't have to wonder if you have the right number. You don't have to wonder if this was their work email or their home email, which we found out recently, like how complicated this all is when everyone's environment has shifted, right, with COVID. So right now you have an always on platform and you can get all of your messages to them instantly. And conversely, they can also. So imagine a consumer that connect with any and all dealers that they want with the click of a button based on information that was shared with them, and they can instantly be connected to Ryan Girardi Automotive about that Bentley they were looking at, or with Lori Foster Automotive over that new Mercedes that they're thinking about for their driveway, or if it's just a question for one of our finance managers. So bi-directionally, open communication in a click, rather than going through the arduous CRM processes and platforms that we are so used to that are giving us not stellar results.
So just to make sure I'm clear on what you're saying, you're talking about providing a forum, if you will, for the dealer to engage with the consumer.
Absolutely.
As opposed to right there on their own website through
Right.
chat per se. Okay.
Right.
Just want to be clear. Now, most dealers are pleased with their website conversions to sales. They say they are. And I think about 98% of traffic typically is anonymous. So are you saying you want to bring that website traffic over to the Ask Auto platform and create engagement? Is that the tactic here?
They're actually going to stay in the dealer's purview, if you will. All they're going to do is jump out to get registered, and then they're right back talking with each other again. What we want to do is we want to keep them anchored to the great work that you did with your website. But we know that right now, over 98% of these people never engage. And we know that, especially with the dealer's own website, they're really proud of it. They spend a lot of time and effort on it. It's the site that they pull up every morning. As soon as they get to the office, it's on their laptop or on their desktop. They were checking it all weekend long to see how things were looking and make sure things looked right. And so our dealers invest in an incredible amount of time with their own websites. But the number we don't look at is how many people are we actually talking to off that website. Without conversations, it's just a lot of clicking and clattering going on around there, and we don't get the conversion results that the dealers deserve. So we looked at all this wide open inventory of your inventory and your offers that you have out there, saying what would unlock those people? Why did they come to your website and not engage? We looked at how do we crack that code on making that happen, because you deserve it. You spent so much time and money already to make this environment available, and people showed up, but why aren't they engaging? So we've cracked the code here.
So let's get into that a little deeper. And you kind of addressed one of these in your material. You have these, there's 3 truths in automotive digital marketing. Why don't you go through those truths and let's see if, anyone agrees or disagrees.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you. So truth number 1 is no matter what you're doing, how much you're spending, how many third parties you have, 85% or more of your shoppers never engage at all in any type, and 98% of the traffic on your website never engages to talk about a car. So that's truth number 1, is that we are talking to an audience that for some reason hasn't, I won't say they're tuning us out, but they haven't completely tuned into us. So the second truth is that people, their personal identifiable information, their PII, is becoming more and more sensitive to them. Yet most of the ways that we tell customers to engage with us is, hi, before I give you any information, I want to know your name, address, city, phone number, everything that you're interested in. And we're shaking them by the ankles for information at a time when customers are more sensitive to that than ever before. The third truth is this. As a former operating inside dealerships for many, many, many years myself, with some of the largest in the country, here's what we saw. The spend that each dealer is making and investing for every customer and every sale has only increased, yet the margins have only shrunk. So this is what I call open jaw math in the wrong direction. We're spending more and we're earning less. So while margins continue to decrease, people are charging us more and more for solutions to get those very same customers. And we're also seeing a vast reduction in the amount of these reach outs that turn into conversations. They're clicks, they're not conversations. Conversations are what sells cars, not clicks.
Would a dealer or a chat provider argue that conversations are happening on their website already?
Oh, they absolutely would. And I give them credit for being early to enter this. And I give the dealers credit that are looking to engage here. But I would have those very dealers ask their Aunt Mary, like, what did she think about that chat environment? How helpful was it? There's still such a mixed school of thought on whether we have somebody hosting it for us or we're hosting it ourselves. So chat, just hosting it is tricky. What are the questions that get asked? What is that experience like? So for most people in most places, that chat is doesn't really take the conversation forward. It answers some basic questions, and the purpose of the chat is all to drive an appointment, not to crack open a conversation. Would you agree with that, Ryan, from the chat that you've seen?
Yeah, in fact, I think since the coronavirus pandemic, what we've seen is that, hey, the goal can't be to get someone into the showroom anymore. You know,
No.
and prior to this, that was the goal for probably 80 to 85% of dealers, was get them in the showroom. So like to your point, using chat, the purpose was to get their information and get an appointment scheduled.
Yeah, and the other thing, the other piece of this too, and again, I applaud people who have offered chat platforms. This is not that. Chatting is a component, but this is not a chat environment. This is a conversation with a purpose. So when we take a look also, when the chat happens, with over 95% of those that provide chat, the chat happens, and then it's all incumbent on the salesperson to follow up through the typical CRM processes that are in place. So what it doesn't do is it does not provide a continuous loop for the channel that was cracked open to stay in that lane. So the customer has no way to go back in and visit the chat. So let's just say I was a customer that did jump on a chat. If you were a dealer that happened to have several, what would the odds be that I would connect back again with you as an agent? Now, you as an agent with a typical chat format might be able to go and research and find out where you left off, but or the other person left off, but that's not a really great experience. That one-to-one is missing, and that continuum is missing, and the purpose is missing. This is very different.
Let's back up. Jim on the live chat asked a question, which I think is good to expand. His question was are visitors anonymous to dealers? And I'll premise that by saying website traffic, I mean, as far as identity, can be relatively, for the most part, anonymous, but from things like PII and big data, we can know things aggregately about website visitors. So how would you respond to Jim's question about are website visitors anonymous?
So, so the answer for that, quick answer is yes, they are anonymous. Just like every visitor is to your showroom, every visitor is to your lot, every visitor to any site that you have. What we're allowing them is a warm-up period, an official warm-up period. This warm-up period, if you want to think of like a dating site, Ryan, not that you'd have any background with this, but when you think about a dating site, you can see the pictures, you can see what's going on, you know who you're talking to, but until the comfort level rises, where you're ready to share personal information, that's shielded. It does not make the conversations any less real. What it does is give somebody the comfort. So when they do step forward, they step forward powerfully and with a lot of enthusiasm for going forward. Like, hey, you know what? You've earned the right to get my private information, even though we were talking already. So in the meantime, this anonymity also is protecting dealers from things like CCPA, the big, huge federal guidelines that are coming down that are already being enacted in states like California and 17 other states, where you won't even want the customer's information until such time as a transaction is happening because of the burden of everything that you have to tell them about what you may or may not be doing with that information. So that's a long answer. The answer is yes, but it's yes, but. And I'd also have them think about what anonymity do they have currently and how much help is it to not have anonymity. You have a phone number in front of you, but do you know that it's even the real number or the best number? You have an email in front of you, but do you know how frequently they check that email? Or is that their special secret email for doing things like this that many people have crafted? But this way you have an open channel immediately and you start talking with real shoppers that Ask Otto has vetted, and so that you're in real conversations that can continue at any time.
So let's head down that path here. So, going on the premise that customers, shoppers They just need information, and they want help. And they don't necessarily have to be forced to give up certain identity about themselves in order for you to help them with that need. So let's get specific. How Ask Auto is a conversion tool for transforming website traffic. Let's get into some of the nuts and bolts of how the process actually works.
Right. So the customer is going to get served up an ad. Well, I'm going to step back just a second. There are marketing campaigns going on in specified markets right now where we're letting customers know that this exists. So some customers might be signing up on their own before they've even chosen a dealership website to visit. They have just begun their car search and they'd like to use this tool. But for this scenario, let's just imagine they're already at Ryan Girardi Automotive. So they're already there and they might see something that says, hi, curious about pricing, but not quite ready to disclose all your information. Let Ask Auto do the work. I'm ready to have someone else do the store the shopping for you. Let us know and we can do it for you with this Ask Auto tool. We'll save your shopping from everywhere. Use Ask Auto. So there can be multiple different assets that are floating around that the customer can engage with at any point that they want. We recommend peppering the entire site. Even some dealers are going forward with every single piece of inventory displayed has a little Ask Auto as an option. Because what we know is that currently most people are not engaging with the contact forms. They're not. So, and we know that 36% of the time when they enter information there's something inaccurate. Now, sometimes, Ryan, they're like me, like with my voice text, and they just made a simple mistake. And I'm sorry about that last one I sent you. But sometimes it's intentional. They want to get the information, but they don't want to get into this arduous process. So this is automatically accurate. So the customer says, I want to log in here and I want to talk like this. Immediately, they're put into a platform with their own unique ID where they can be starting chats with the dealer. The next piece is they start the chats with the dealer. They get their own dashboard, Ryan. So every single thing that they're saying and that they're looking for, whether they're storing it or the dealer's storing it for them, special offers, appraisals for their trade, conversations about finance, it's all stored in one convenient dashboard that they can use no matter where they're searching. Now, let's just say that Ryan Girardi Automotive wants to talk to me. They take a look at the dashboard. They're like, Lori Foster looks like an interesting customer. She's got a trade. She's looking at a piece of inventory that we have. You just click the button and you're immediately in that platform. You know that it's the right number because it's the only number. It's the only number for that customer. And so immediately you see that you're talking to Ask Auto user 123, and we're having a dialogue. And you can tell me your name and I'll talk to you. I'll tell you the best thing that happens is when we see customers saying, oh, Ryan, I'm sorry, I already gave you my information, because the conversation is so warm and it's moving forward that they think that they've already given it to you. Yeah, so they jump in here. It's a very familiar platform. It looks like, oh, so many different things you've seen, including some of you have used Slack before. Not so much in the automotive retail business, but it just looks like a lot of different chat platforms in its feeling, but not with its purpose and not with its storability. So you just start locking everything down, moving the conversations forward, and the customer is really super familiar with this kind of feeling of communication, and they just feel like they're talking one-to-one with you and getting great help now with the dealers.
So I almost want to say it's a hybrid of what we would call a digital retailing widget, but also of a third-party listing site, because a third-party listing site's providing consumers with a way to basically ping a dealer of expressed interest, but it is by giving them their contact info. Ask Auto's not saying, hey, you have to share that. It's just providing that space. Can you build a deal through the interface like you would on your website?
Well, I'm going to tap the brakes before we go there, because of course we can. Of course we can, but this is not at all like I was just on a call with Eric and a client earlier. He's like, absolutely not. We're not a third-party listing site, because this is so much more intelligent and the customer is allowed to be so much more agile in their shopping. Almost every third-party listing site wants you to only use them and is really worried about things like lead attribution and like looking at their offers. This lets the customer it cracks open all the doors for them as well. It lets them do whatever they want, wherever they want. So they can even take their Ask Auto code to cars.com or AutoTrader or TrueCar or wherever. So they can use that widget and be shopping anywhere they want with that. So third-party listings are only talking about inventory. We're talking about experience and conversation.
Okay. And again, to clarify, Ask Auto could bring people from the marketplace to the dealership, but by the same token, customers on the dealership website could come into the Ask Auto environment through that dealership and continue the engagement there.
Yes,
okay.
Both ways.
So here's what we're going to do, folks. We're going to open this up for those that are back here on Zoom. If you want to have your microphone on, just raise your hand, and love to have you kind of pick at Lori a little bit here on some of what you're seeing. Just to do a quick reorientation, you're here, folks, at our Automotive Consumer Experience webcast program, which is one of 6 different auto retail marketing webcasts that we have here in Auto Conversion that we conduct on a weekly basis. Every Tuesday at 3:00 Central is one of our 6 programs, and we do exactly what you see here. We have a conversation around various subject matters with subject matter experts like Lori, and then we open it up for any sort of panel discussion. If you're here on the live stream, I'll be checking that again as well. I know a couple of you had dialed in there. So again, folks, if you're on Zoom, if you want to if you want to have your mic on, just raise your hand. I'll turn your mic on and we can ask Lori some questions here. All right, so let's do this. Let's talk about the go-to-market strategy right now. What markets, because I know it's not a national rollout for Ask Auto, where is Ask Auto focused on right now, market-wise, geographically?
Well, we actually are launching nationally. We have people from California to Canada to Florida to upstate New York and Pennsylvania, all going live. We decided in the middle of this epic pandemic that was going on that this was a solution that we shouldn't wait any longer for. We were probably going to launch in the middle of June or early July, as it was before, but we took a look at what dealers are trying to accomplish right now. And we went, they need every possible advantage right now with customers who are at home on their devices, multiple screens, doing their shopping. And we also took a look at there are incredible people out there available to go and do this work. People who are skilled, who've been in the market dealing with our automotive dealers everywhere beforehand. So we're activating everywhere. We aren't in every single location yet, but we also have agencies that are starting to drive campaigns to markets. We've started in Tennessee, Florida, and Texas right now for our early tests. We have an OEM that's doing a pilot right now in California in 2 different markets with about 60 different dealer rooftops. So we're a little bit of everywhere, but we haven't permeated yet. This is an incredible time for someone to get in while they would like an absolute advantage. Think of this, Ryan. Think of the dealer that can say, we're the first in this region. We're the first in Dallas to want to help you shop more easily, no matter where you shop, kind of like Progressive Insurance, right? And we're the first to give you total privacy and roll out the red carpet for you, no matter what you're looking for. We just want to have conversations with people who want to talk to us about cars that we have. That's all.
Great. And I do have a question coming in from David on the Zoom. David, I just turned your ability for you to talk. You're going to be on mute by default, so you have to unmute and you can ask your question.
Hi, David. How are you today?
I'm good. And you?
Great. Thanks. Thanks for taking the time.
So my question is, where do I find Ask Auto? I mean, do I just type in askauto.com? I mean, how does a customer find you right now?
So right now, there are 2 ways. Right now, they might see a campaign that's running in your area, or it might be on the dealer's website. And so all of those call to action buttons I was referring to a few minutes ago, So like, let's say you're on Girardi Automotive, there might be one on your main screen when you pop up. So even right here, Ryan's showing a screen of what it looks like, right? This would be more of a marketing piece, but you'll see there, like that marketing piece, David, would align itself with whatever your search wanted. And Ryan, if you don't mind scrolling back up just a touch, you see those 3 tabs? My next car, seller trade, and activate my shopper shield, which is my anonymity. Whatever, so this whole system is a smart system. And so whatever ad that you had seen, like, hey, protect my anonymity while I shop, it would start with the activate shield piece. If you had started with, I'm looking for a vehicle, if you had started with from the premise of, I'd like to sell or trade my vehicle, it will always start at the entry point that marketing piece put out there. Now, if you're already on the dealer's website, those call to actions can align with all of those or even other messaging that the dealer would want to put on there. We're able to customize those for each dealer. We have a list of about 50 call to actions, along with, you can do banner ads, you can do small pop-up items, you can have this place, we have creative pieces for almost everything you can imagine. In addition, David, right now, some agencies, some media companies right now, like instead of only displaying cars for certain dealers, are running the Ask Auto campaigns, or for specific dealers, they're running, here's Girardi Automotive, and they're offering this private shopping service. So that's how you can find it. Or also straight line, go to askauto.com. And that's probably down the road a little bit as soon as we have more brand awareness. But great question. Thank you for asking it.
So right now, if a consumer were to find this, they'd be shopping on some automotive network site, most likely, click on a banner ad, and then they'd go to the local dealer that had paid for the ad, or wherever the agency is pushing it to.
Yes. Any and all of those.
So it can be a dealer-facing tool, but it's also a consumer tool that allows them to feel like they can shop anonymously.
Absolutely.
So how do you bridge the gap with that then, with people who want to shop anonymous, but the OEM doesn't allow you to get any information off of that brand? Like BMW, for example, I mean, you can go in there and do whatever you want on a BMW site, but you can't get a price until you give up your information. The only vendor provider that can get around that, I believe, there's a Cox pilot it's called Accelerate. And if you're a BMW dealer, Accelerate can give you a lease payment, they can give you a finance payment, but to get a price or anything on a new car, because of what's called map pricing, you can't get anything if you're a consumer unless you give up your information. And if my memory serves me correctly, it's the same way with Mercedes. It may also be the same way with like Lexus. I'm not sure, but I know that a lot of brands do not allow you to really shop anonymously until you give up your information. They don't give you a price, which is kind of why people go to places like TrueCar and Costco to get pricing.
Right. Well, one of the interesting wrinkles that we have to this is Ask Auto has their information. So we have it. So the customer's disclosed it, but we're not disclosing it to the dealer until the customer says yes. So in most cases, this is a great workaround because the information exists. It is available. It just hasn't been uncorked yet to the dealer until they're ready to go.
I get it. I'm just saying with because of map pricing with certain OEM tops,
yep,
you can have their information, but until the dealer has their information, they're not allowed to share the sale price.
Right.
Well, until it becomes a conversation with the customer.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I'll dig in a little deeper to make sure that I got perfect clarity on that, but we already have OEMs in that are okay with the platform.
The guidelines are pretty strict there. You can't give up a price to the customer until you've gotten their contact info. And the reason is because the OEM wants them to come through a portal that's one of their portals, and that the OEM is copied on that information as well, because we're in the age of data. Most OEMs are aligned with companies like Shift Digital, and the website providers are approved website providers. So what happens is that when you put a widget on a OEM site like that, or a dealer site, the OEM manufacturer wants that customer data as well. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, but with certain manufacturers, unless you have that agreement, you couldn't give them anything.
Absolutely.
Unless you had offers and they want to shop that pricing with you on your platform. I mean, does your platform give pricing and payments and terms?
It will be, we will not be the ones giving the payments and terms, but the machine learning that we have will be offering advisory as to what what terms and what different options might be appealing to the type of customers that are reaching out to to various different pricing. So machine learning is going to be a huge part of this entire platform once we start aggregating users quickly.
See, 5 or 6 years ago, everybody came out to, hey, we need to let the customer shop anonymously, and we need to be transparent, and we need to do all these great things to make sites sticky so that customers can go there and click on things and figure it out. But what happened is they still weren't changing their lead count numbers. So then the OEMs went just the opposite way and said, you know what, we don't want dealers whoring out prices to compete with each other. We just want you to show the prices on new cars at MSRP. So we kind of went back to like 1990 concepts of a website and call for price. And what we did is we kind of made it harder and said, you know what, we're going to make it more difficult. We want you to give up your customer information. So what we see in today's market is an influx of leads with emails.
Right.
And what happens is that majority of those emails that are coming in are the bullshit email. It's I have a couple emails that if I don't know you, I'm going to just put that email in and we'll see if I want to pay attention to you. But email is kind of the worst way to conduct a conversation with most customers, because we know that 87% of everybody we talk with would prefer to get information by text than by an email.
No, and to your point also, and I think this would be a really enjoyable conversation, is as I'm watching what all of the manufacturers are doing in real time and in conversations behind the scenes with many of their chief marketing officers, is saying, what is their willingness going to look like now that we've gone through this drastic change? Imposed upon us. Some people needed it imposed upon them. David, I think it sounds like you would agree with that. But so due to this drastic change, do they want to sell cars or not? And when customers are pushing back and saying, I want to do this, but I'm going to go to the place that doesn't force me to do a process, Highline or otherwise. I think it's going to be interesting. So let's continue that conversation, because I think it's a really good one.
But, most dealerships can tell who the customer is that's shopping on their website. I mean, majority of my website providers, I can track anybody's IP address and I can track it down to a household and I can assume who it is talking to me. And especially if they're in my database. I mean, many dealerships' websites have keyloggers. The problem with dealerships is there's nobody at the dealership level that's paying attention to any of the data that's coming through. And then most dealers are afraid to give that information to their sales staff simply because nobody wants to make that call to a customer and sound like Big Brother. So you don't want to open yourself up to a lawsuit there. I think that many dealers have great information right now on people. And I think it's a wonderful tool and a wonderful concept. But, in today's market, what I've noticed is that my sales aren't off. My sales I'm actually trending to sell more cars this month than I did the previous time last year. So, I mean, as a group, we're going to deliver over 800 cars this month. So, I mean, I'm on pace to have a great month. My grosses are a little bit different because what's happened to me is that a lot of my conversations are all online. The deals take longer to structure. We're not as profitable, but we're selling cars. We're picking up a lot more cars for service than we ever did before. And we're on pace to break last year's record again. But the difference is that we're kind of a concierge dealership and we do most of our paperwork online anyway, because we kind of have on some of our tops, we're a one and only dealership. So you deal with one salesperson who's also your finance manager, who's also the sales manager. So we kind of have a goal in getting people in and out in 1 hour. So I have a little bit different concept, but really this has forced the dealership to do things differently. But really everything we're doing, I mean, we ship cars, all car dealers in my area ship cars all around the country. The only perspective we had to change is learning how to hold the conversation more over the phone and how to ship the car a mile away or ship it 500 miles away and handle it in the same process and just tweak it. So, I mean, we have to be better concierge and we have to be better on the phone and we have to be better on video chat. And this tool does come in handy for a lot of dealers that don't know how to navigate through all the different products. Fortunately for us, we know how.
You would be what we all call an innovator, on the curve of innovation. You'd be an innovator. And I applaud you for that.
I'll
tell you, in the Chicago market, I'm not alone. There's a shitload of innovators in this area.
let me hijack here and build on this. Lori and Dave, you'll be instrumental for this too, because you have a real good pulse on the ad spends. What, Lori, makes Ask Auto more cost effective when we talk about a dealer's ad spend, conversion, a conversion ratio, and ultimate ROI? What makes Ask Auto more cost effective?
The fact that we're taking the spend. I just had this conversation with a client just before this. We're taking a lot of dealers right now, we're seeing them want to trim back or finesse their digital marketing spend because of exactly what you talked about, was that the costs have escalated, David, but our return on that investment has dropped. And that's not just because of COVID. That's been happening for the last 10 years in a row, as margins have compressed. So when we take a look at that, what it does is it says all of your efforts that you've already put out there, this is a way to squeeze more out of that blood out of that turnip, if you will, because you've already put the messaging out there, you've built your great website, you've created an appeal for it. But right now, the thing that you love the most, your website, and the thing that you say converts the best, still doesn't convert as well as what we'd really like to say, if we're honest. So what this does is says, okay, you've got these people here. They've isolated down to a local feeling dealer, inventory that was appealing to them. They probably got there through this funnel, but then we still log jam them. Let's open it back up. So I look at it like a funnel that, instead of just a funnel that's ending and plopping out 5 or 10% results, that now we crack it open here by ending the funnel at the wider part and starting conversations up here with more people. We are now talking with more people actively, not just ones that we're going to buy a car no matter what. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that happens in our industry is we're like, oh, we closed X% of our phone calls. Well, let's just talk about phone calls for a second, Ryan. Like out of 100 people that called Girardi Automotive, 100, how many people, even if you don't answer the phone, were on their way there anyway, right? Like out of all of the phone calls. And for somebody to be all the way through the funnel and already look at, I'm looking at a car, it's this specific car, they have it, it's in my price range, I'll fill out this form. What percentage of those people were going to go forward anyway? Even if you called them names, even if you didn't answer the phone, even if you sent them back a terrible response, you had something that they wanted. So I look at the lift here as our lift with either a phone or emails at anything above 5%. 5% were coming no matter what. So what I'm looking at is if we can crack this conversation open with more people that didn't want to be forced down that funnel artificially early, but we got it opened higher when they could start communication and conversation. We now start building trust, rapport, options all in, and not just dealing with those people who are at the bottom of the funnel anyway with no fault or no great work of our own.
David, I want to hear your response. So Lori, you're, and I think you suggested that about 5% of people calling inbound are already going to get there and engage with you no matter what. David,
I think it's higher than that, Ryan. I mean, I think that it's a much higher number than 5% for us. I think that probably 30% of the people that plan on coming are going to come anyway. The difference is that dealers fumble their way into a sale because let's take, for example, why a customer buys a car from a car dealership. If we're just talking about sales. So people buy from us because of our location. People buy from us because of our selection. People buy from us because of our reputation. Then people buy from us based on the price and the terms, how we communicate with them, how we follow up with them, and how we continue to service them and be a good concierge. So if we're truthful to our word and we've positioned ourselves with a good value statement and we have open communication, the disconnect with car dealerships is that you have all this wonderful communication online. Majority of your people went to Google regardless of what you spent with your third-party vendors and your pay-per-click. Okay, you had this wonderful communication, you painted yourself wonderful, but then the communication breakdown happens and then the consumer gets there. And even though the person called and said, I want to know if the vehicle's available, I claim this offer, I'm on my way. Hey, what are you here to look at? And they start the process all over. That's what happens at a car dealership in reality is the process breaks because all departments aren't aligned in the communication process. It's one big happy circle if you want to make it one, but you have to continue that with the right communication device, whether it's this tool or another tool or the process that a dealership set up. I mean, I sold hundreds of cars a month without a CRM and with a legal pad. So we didn't need CRMs to sell hundreds of cars a month. However, we do need all these tools in place to manage and make it easier for the customer process. And because we are human, you could lose your legal pad and errors happen. I'll fess up to that. But in reality, it all comes down to communication and making it easier for the consumer. The problem is people want to change the narrative all the time. Is it digital retailing? Is it a great trade-in tool? Is it a great chat tool? Should I be advertising? Should I be using this, or that? The problem is we need to be experts in all of them because we never know at what micro moment that a customer is within. Is it a streaming app that's going to get my ad out? Is it Comcast? Is it pay-per-click? Is it Auto Trader? It's all of them. Okay. And it comes down to it funneling to getting them to your website and then having the communication process to execute. So I think that when it comes right down to it, it's a lot higher than 5%. But what people doesn't realize, it's not just the website you're proud of. Majority of your customers are probably just Googling you. All right. And they probably just know that you're there. The problem is the person answering the phone, if the phone gets answered, and then how we handle it and the questions we answer, and then creating urgency and giving them an immediate response and smiling while you're holding the conversation. There's so many little things that we just forget. But the biggest one that we can really learn is communication.
Well, David, I would love for you to take me up on my services with Foster Strategies Group, because after a culmination of 22 years in automotive, this is exactly what I talk about, because it's all about your systems and processes, no matter what you spend. The thing that is helpful about Ask Auto is it makes it easier for managers to manage this traffic and these conversations. It makes it more natural than digging into the CRM and looking for it. Everything is right at their fingertips. It's close. It also makes it easier for the customer to pick up where they left off. You made a really great point. Now, that baton, I call it the baton handoff, because as a former track runner myself, I was always being told that it's the pass off, the race is won or lost in the pass off. And you were alluding to that a minute ago here. So just imagine now, as the consumer, even if you want to drop the ball, I can say, here's my Ask Auto app. Everything that I've just been doing happened here. Nobody has to leave you. Nobody has to go to their manager and look it up. They don't have to go to their CRM and look it up. Everything is right here. They can share QR codes, and immediately that new salesperson or manager is instantly up to speed with everything that customer has done. So, you speak honestly and you speak candidly about what's really happening out there. And so that's all things that I do with my company for helping, systems and performance coaching. But Ask Auto is a tool that helps knowing this environment. We know that this environment exists. So how do we help dealers get out of their own way a little bit? And one of those things is we are letting customers slip through. After all of the effort that we've placed, we're letting customers slip through without a conversation to them. And we know this, more conversations with more customers about cars sells more cars. End of story.
Here's a question that came in for you, Dave.
Equals commitment.
Dave, here's a question that came in for you, speaking to Lori just touched on it. It's customers slipping through the handoff process. How, let me see the question again. How much of a role does, and you use the word anonymity, Lori. Anonymity.
No.
No, I got it wrong.
Shopping anonymously. How much of a factor is that, Dave, in your opinion? How often does the exchange of contact information botch a conversation from happening? Well, I think the problem is that I think the problem is that if a customer can't go in and kind of figure out a payment and kind of figure out where they're at in their budget and kind of get an idea without having to interact with somebody, there's a problem. I mean, we know this because when you add these digital retailing tools on, if you heat map them, if you use a keylogger and you track what the customers do and what pages they do, there's thousands of results a minute that people click on these things. The problem with making a customer, forcing them down the tunnel of we have to get your info, is kind of crazy. I mean, think about TrueCar. All right. Have you ever gone in and submitted a TrueCar lead?
Yes.
It's a pain in the ass. Okay. They have you drill down to, yes, you're buying now, give us all your info, pick the specific car. And by the time you get done with it, it's like, you just can't wait till somebody calls you, okay, from TrueCar to get this done or sends me my offer, because it's tough. Okay. But the reason that it's so difficult and you go through these series of funnels is simply because they're trying to deliver the dealer the best qualified lead. Now, I sometimes call BS on that because I get a lot of leads and I don't sell them all. So in my opinion, my ego gets in the way and I kind of go, well, if they were the best leads, I should have sold them all. But let's remove my ego now. And let's look at it this way. If a customer was allowed to shop a little bit more anonymously and figure things out, I'm not saying the dealer should be able to show a price that uses every freaking rebate and stacks all the rebates. And we play the game, excuse the language, of who's the biggest whore on the websites. I think the OEM should police that stuff. That's why map pricing comes into place. But restricting a consumer from without having some idea of a price, some idea of a payment, some idea of a lease payment, and to be able to use a calculator and then decide, you know what, this fits my budget. Now let me submit a lead. I mean, that's the whole idea of digital retailing. It shouldn't be give up all my information and give up all my stuff on my trade value. Let me run out to my car and get my license plate number or my VIN number. Who the hell knows their license plate number and who keeps their VIN number by them? Are you really going to whip out your insurance card and go, oh, let me type this in on my trade-in? We make it so difficult and we micromanage the process so much that the customer just blows out and goes somewhere else, because in reality, all these websites, so many of them, really suck.
So David, I'd like to address a couple of those things you said there. So even when we get there, what we call their real information, and it's not anonymous, we make the process so difficult that they want out. And that's from third-party vendors or from dealers themselves. We make it so painful and it's not appealing. And that's why we believe so much gets lost in those very terrible processes that it's better to just start a conversation. When we start a conversation, if I just start talking to Ryan and I don't know him, hey, Ryan, I was curious about learning about the podcast work that you do. Oh, Lori, where'd you hear about me? Oh, you know what? A friend recommended that. We just start from this place of purity. We're not tainted by a bad process. We're not tainted by the time that it takes, by the difficulties or the challenges, by someone assuming that I can or can't buy the car, by someone stretching out the timelines and making it painful. We just start from a place of pure conversation. And that's what customers want to.
We need conversation. And the problem is that we try to define conversation into a few minutes or into a few hours or into they're going to buy within 5 days or 5 weeks. Car dealers are wrong, because in a conversation, let's take a Facebook conversation and buying a car. A customer starts in the chat, hey, is this vehicle available? The chat person responds back, yes, this vehicle is available. When would you like to come in and see it? The customer doesn't respond. 3 days later, the customer comes back in that same chat and goes, hey, I'd like to come in this Saturday. Great. What time would you like to come in? Now, this is Thursday. Okay. On Friday, the customer responds back, hey, I'd like to come in at 2:15. Great. I'll come in and ask for Alan. Okay, thank you. Now, what a dealer doesn't realize is that a conversation can last a lot more than a few minutes. The other problem that a dealer doesn't realize is that a conversation online starts on day 1. It ends on day 87 to day 130 days from now. And you don't know where the customer is in that funnel. So yes, you need a very big funnel of communication and to figuring out how to land them. The problem is we think we're mind readers. We want to retarget people for 30 days. We want to do all this fancy stuff. But by the time that lead comes down to you, you really don't know how long they've been shopping for. You think that you get a lead in and they all need to buy within 7 to 10 days. But in reality, if they're on day 30 and they're still in the inquiry state, they're probably not going to buy for 60 to 70 days from now. But the problem is your CRM stopped following up on them at 45 days. They lost contact with you and they went on to the next person. or they tried to reconvene with you, but you forgot who they were because you didn't have the right tools that said, hey, this person's talked to you before. Which
David,
is where
it sounds to me, David, like you sold cars before, like I did. Did you sell cars before?
I've sold cars. I've been sales manager, used car manager, GM, service writer.
Simple question. Did you sell cars before? Yes or no?
Before
yes.
What?
Just before at all.
Oh, yeah.
Before the internet, yes. Before the internet. Let's put it that
even
way.
Before, did you ever sell cars before this conversation today?
Anytime.
So yes, simple question. Okay. Simple question. Would you rather have a busy parking lot with a lot of customers out there, or would you rather have two? And one of them's in the showroom saying, who's the lucky person that wants to buy a car today, right? And the other person is credit out. Like, we would rather have that busy parking lot, that busy dealer lot with a lot of people talking. It energizes our people. We get conversations going. Sure. It gives us repetitions and at-bats. And right now, what we're doing is we're saying the only people that we're ready to talk to are the people who we have forced, and they have allowed themselves to go down this very rigid funnel. So we're only talking to people who are ready to do that, rather than cracking it open earlier and creating a more warm, embracing, come on in, look around feeling. We want people to be drawn. That's why we do hot dog sales and balloons and all of these things, because we'd rather just attract more people to talk to. So when I look at InSearch X and Ask Otto, I look at it as the old days of like, let's just get more people here so we can talk to them. That's why we did those things, isn't it, David? We wanted to talk to people, and we knew that when we talked to more people, we sold more cars than we would have if we just stood there and waited for the few who were coming in anyway. And that's why we talk about activating the 98.
Activity breeds activity, but in today's market, it's not about just activity. It's about actions, and it's about taking care of people. So I would rather have a ton of phone calls and a ton of website traffic and a ton of interaction online and a ton of questions. I mean, over this weekend, we had 400 leads. And people are like, oh my God, that's more leads than we can handle. And I'm like, I would rather have more leads than I can handle than a bunch of people standing in my lot just shopping, kicking tires. And I would rather concise those people down to appointments and create urgency and get them in and get them to buy. But what I realize is just because I got 400 leads doesn't mean that I have 400 buyers. Those are people that are going to take a little bit longer to follow up on because they're not physically coming to my store. I'm delivering cars to a lot of those people. And those conversations that start today online are people that I may not sell for another 2-3 months, but I'm going to sell them at some point.
Yep, with a good path that stays personal and relevant and meaningful to those people, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will.
I have a question, Lori. I know a lot of dealers, and I don't know, David, if you're one of them, that pretty much look for the immediate buyers in their lead pool. And if they determine they're not buying within 30 days, or if they've been pursuing them for more than 30 days, they pretty much just kick the leads and just move on. Will Ask Auto help engage those longer term, like you were saying, David, the ones that are farther out? And how much involvement from the dealer does Ask Auto require during that process? Or is there a lot of automation that does that?
You know what? I'm glad you asked, because David has had a lot of really good points. So I've been listening and taking some notes on that. But there is a feature called Auto Engage, literally Auto Engage, which sounds like automatically engage. At any point in time, Ask Auto, through machine learning, might be serving up messages to those customers or making recommendations to dealers about what to say. In addition, also, what they might do is say, if Ryan drops out and says, I'm opting out of the conversation, Auto Engage will offer up a polling device. You say, what happened? Is there something that we can do to help? Let us know when you're ready to jump back in. You can always reopen this conversation. Let us know if you still want offers, but just want to discontinue with this person. Auto Engage is the part of that machine learning that's going to give smart responses and take it forward, rather than right now your people. And David, I'm not sure about your CRM, but most CRMs in the country, most sales managers aren't looking at that closely to see the entire thread. The entire thread of the conversation is there, not just my reporting of what happened. So the entire thread's there. And a manager that's going to take just a second and cruise through all of their Ask Otto conversations can use this as excellent training too, to keep someone on track, help them see where they got off track with the customer. Right. So when we think about like what Otto's going to do, it's also going to give the consumer the chance to say, you know what, that was a great answer from Ryan, or you know what, that bill was just not giving me the help that I needed. It's going to allow the consumers, almost like a crowdsource rating, to say whether things are going well or not, so that we can quickly learn from that dealership where their sensitive spots are in, whether it's pricing or inventory or the salesperson or manager themselves, how we can finesse that. And there's not a CRM out there or a chat tool that's telling you how effective you are in real time based on that consumer, and with a tool like Ask Otto to compile that into meaningful stories for you to act on right away.
We need to wrap up. And I was listening, but I was also engaged with the live chat. Eric on the live feed says, recommended inventory as the inventory changes over time to reconnect the dealer and the consumer.
Absolutely.
There's no listings on Ask Otto, right?
We have access to the dealer's entire inventory.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not advertised like a listing. It's just it's in the system. Okay. So we
are using that inventory for our campaign. So that's where this multi-front approach with OEMs, with agencies, and with dealers, we're rolling that up because the agencies will be leveraging that to help drive campaigns. Absolutely.
So folks, we have a lot to unearth here. This is all kind of new, I think, for both myself and Lori. We're strategizing here around this, and Dave, I'm glad you were able to chime in today, because you just bring up some really important pushback, right, and challenges for everyone to think about. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Lori, do you want to just close out with anything? So kind of have a last word here.
Well, I think, first of all, thank you. And I'm really glad that we had a dealer on that's passionate and that's moving forward quickly, because that's not normal. Even though your market may be competitive, David, a lot of people say what they're doing, and then there's what they really are doing, and not just activity, but then can they bolster that with the systems and processes inside the store with their people? So I want to acknowledge you for that. When we have a new platform like this, there are a lot of questions because it's something that we haven't seen before. Like, we didn't know what Google was when it came out. We didn't know what Amazon could or would do for us and how it would shape our lives going forward. But now this gives us a chance. And what we're talking about today is just one small slice of what Ask Otto can do for dealers and activate people who were never going to respond before, and give them the opportunity to chat earlier and get that unfair advantage against their competitors, with these customers, and start answering their finance questions, their trade concerns much, much earlier by catching them towards the top of that funnel when there are more people and not those who are just going to plop through anyway. So let's let dealers do what they do best. They're great at talking. They're great at communicating. They really do care when they're involved in a conversation, but I've yet to see very many dealers that really care about an e-lead, like with their whole heart. That are really watching that with their whole heart, and that are really looking at their phone the way we were looking earlier in e-leads and go, how many of these people were coming in here anyway? Like, let's take a look at what difference did we really make? And Ask Otto is a way that you can start to tap into that and have real conversations with real people in that pivotal moment for them. So I look forward to continuing the conversation and making this possible for dealers everywhere. We've got our team now that's going out there. If you're an agency listening in, contact me directly. Ryan will have my information there too. So whether you're an OEM, an agency, or dealer, we have a solution for you that connects with consumers and allows you to have conversations with those very people that want to buy cars. And let's make them want to buy it from you, that dealer who is ready to have a conversation with them.
All right, Lori, thank you. I know you have so much going on, and we kind of decided late last week, hey, let's have you up here and do this. So I appreciate making the time to get up here and be here with us.
Anytime, Ryan. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So Lori Foster, folks, from Foster Strategies Group, and we're talking about the Ask Auto platform. That's OTTO, coming to a local market near you. It's actually just entering into its national rollout, and it's a new platform designed to help turn website traffic into conversations, and as Lori said, get that long-term continuous engagement strategy in place. You're watching the Automotive Consumer Experience webcast panel. This is one of 6 different webcast programs that we conduct on a weekly basis here on Auto Conversion. Each of them does require its own one-time registration, but once you're registered, then you are always automatically able to participate in any web panel discussion within that series, which, since there's 6, occurs about every 6 weeks. Go to autoconversion.net, look under masterminds. There's a calendar link so you can see what's coming up next. Next week is social selling and auto retail. These are recorded and then featured on either the Auto Converse podcast, and as I've mentioned a few times, we're going to start featuring some of these conversations on the Dealer Talk podcast as well. Once the live stream ends, the recording becomes archived and unlisted. So the best way to make sure you have access to all of these recordings that we do to the archives is to be subscribed to our YouTube channel. And then you'll always have the link. I'm Ryan Girardi. We're going to go ahead and shut down. Lori, if you want to just stand by while I take us offline. And folks, we'll be back here same place next week, but at 3 o'clock Central, not 2 o'clock. Thanks, everyone. Take care. 1 second here.